I just finished my full deep dive of Partynextdoor and Drake's new project, Some Sexy Songs for You. And at its best, it's a good collection of songs that showcases both men's ability to make songs in this genre and to use their strengths and superpower to really appeal to the audience and give off good vibes. At its worst, it sounds like more of a playlist that essentially at certain points has low moments that gives off a little bit of a disjointed vibe. Let's get into it. It is a 21 track project, so I'm going to go back to something I used to do a long time ago. I'm going to give you guys what I love, the records that I love, the records that I like, the records that were okay, and the records that I was like, why is this here? So here's the list. You can screenshot if you want. You can take it. If you don't want to watch the whole video, you can just reference it. But let's break these sections down one by one. For me, "Give Me a Hug" is a standout. I mean, it's actually the only one I'm gonna use the picture for here because I think it's a great example of Drake sort of in this project almost holding his rap version back. Right, like, oh, I wanted to make this a vibe project. I wanted to make this a smooth project. But the rap version of him says, no, I'm going to step out. And I'm also not only going to step out, I'm going to talk a little bit about what's going on here. The production on this record, as many other records on the album, is very immaculate. And I like the sort of manufactured struggle of, I really am talking about what's going on here. Shout out to the fans. I know they want to rip me on a t-shirt like Hulk Hogan, but I'm still here. This is a token of my appreciation. And then also, the shots at Joe Budden lets us know if Drake's going to be rapping like this on his solo project, everybody else should be just a bit scared. Well, not us, mostly Joe Budden, right? Now let's go back here and run them all one by one, right? Nokia is another record that I love. One thing about Nokia, I'm going to share something with you guys. One of the contributors on the project, I believe I'm saying his name right, El Khan, that's how you say that, was sort of like an unknown guy that I didn't know of, but contributed well to this, and I really, really enjoyed this. Now, I know this is probably the Jersey Club kind of guy in me, you know what I'm saying, that would favor a higher tempo record, and I'm not the most Jersey Club obsessed person, but the sound just feels a bit familiar to the ear. So I really enjoyed the up-tempo-ness of this. I like the way they blended it together. This is another standout record for me. Another record that I really like here is Deeper. And now this is where P&D sort of stands out on leaning on the superpower. Remember earlier I told you, at his best, these are two guys that kind of understand what they do best. So he goes into this Deeper record, sultry record, obviously with some sexual innuendos there, or sometimes you can just say that it was right out there for you. And it feels like something that's very fitting, right, for Valentine's Day. This is what I mean when they know, okay, this is what I do well, let me hop on this. I like that the lyrics on this weren't as a bit challenging as some of the other Y records. They felt like they weren't forced, and I really enjoyed this record. The next record for me is going to be Small Town Fame. The beat on this is absolutely bonkers. Bonkers. And let's be honest, right? That whole sequence from about track 5 or so to about track 12 is just elite production. On that Small Town Fame record, I do hear elements of the What Would Pluto Do flow there. So that's interesting that Drake sort of brought that back out. But I really, really like this record. I really love this record. And another record that I love is the Pimmy's Dilemma here. This is another one where you let someone get a shine. I didn't know who Pim was. I've been calling her Pimmy. I didn't know who she was. But the contrast on that record of, I don't want you to go out with your friends versus what these guys were talking about, it actually then made me start understanding the sort of concept of the album, if there was one, and if it wasn't just some sexy songs for you, right? If I had to kind of create it myself and ignore that, it felt a little like a playlist, which is these gentlemen are talking about their relationship with women, the ups and downs of it, and sort of kind of giving that bachelor feel, but that unattached relationship, situationships from the viewpoint of men, right? Whereas you get Pimmy coming in here and she's giving you kind of the contrast to that, right? So that's another record that I really, really, really loved. And it's an interlude with just Pim, and she stands out there and she blends, the sort of sequence here together. Now, some records that I like, I will talk about them. Brian Still is a record that I like. One thing I will say about Brian Still, we talk about that's the Young Thug's attorney, YSL attorney. I want to just make it like a little odd connection here, but it's not that crazy. I don't even think this is just my brain, the way my brain works, right? So on Give Me a Hug, Drake had pulled out the kind of like the flow that he used on, oh, you went down, down, down. Says God, he a visionary on a portion of that. And I just find it funny that before Give Me a Hug, Brian Steele was a song before Give Me a Hug. And that's kind of the flow that I would connect Give Me a Hug with Oh You Went. But Brian Steele comes before that. I don't know. That's just some this just kind of how my brain works. Like I had like a whole like kind of like triangular, like, oh, there's some dots there. I don't know what they are. So maybe this is from one of those studio sessions. These two records were from one of those studio sessions and they happen to fit for this project, right? Now, I will say here another record that I like, Mothballs. But the thing with that is, when I first heard the beginning of this record, I was not a fan. I mean, we talked about it on a live last night. Tracks 1 to 5, I really, on that live listen, didn't really work for me. When I drove in a car and I listened to AirPods, a lot of those records eventually grew on me. My Balls is one of them. And I would say that from about 135 or so, something around that record, it really, really, really sounded good. I had some fears that maybe this project, some of the joints, remember I told you at its worst, they kind of sound disjointed. I would say that Bump Balls is one of the one. It's on a better end. It's on a better end. Another record that I really started to enjoy. Spider-Man, Superman, that's a vibe. The beat there. Oh my God, that beat! I really, really, really like that beat. I honestly wouldn't mind some kind of like soulful rapping on that. And another one that I really like, you could probably have moved this up to Love, Raining in Houston. And the reason I like this, if you say you missed the whole Drake, go ahead and go listen to that. That's giving me So Far Gone vibes. I mean, the name is a teller. The lyrics even sound like he was more reminiscent of that era. Now, I want to take this point to kind of sort of mention what I think if there kind of would be a concept to this album. This is one of those songs that should be leading that, right? Like, how do you balance in these relationships with women at this point in your life, etc., if that's the overall theme of it? But if you just want to say it's a playlist, here's some sexy songs. They talk about some highs, they talk about some low. Somebody Loves Me is another record that I really like. Party Next Door, standing out here. This feels like a record during brunch. Now, I know we're in February, but you start going to that March, April time, I could see a lot of women. And again, this is kind of a different point of view. I can see women kind of projecting this one, right? And taking it at brunch. When He's Gone, sounds pretty cool as well. I like that. Another thing I like about When It's Gone here, though, the lyrics are strong. I feel like the concept that I'm getting this on this record fits more of what I envision. And it feels like a track 20, I believe, should have been higher up. Let's move that higher up. I'm not even crazy. I would swap that with like CN Tower. And speaking of CN Tower, these are some okay records. I think the thing with CN Tower, things like Something About You, there's a little bit of structural disadvantages with the lyrics because they feel like they were pushing for I guess, simple lyrics because it's R&B, but they could have been technically better on those. Crying in Chanel, I was infuriated, okay? Mostly because Crying in Chanel, the snippet that I heard was what I thought would be the majority of the song. Now, I will say this, after I listened to Crying Chanel a lot more, it has grown on me, so I'm pretty cool with that. Lazy is another record that I'm okay with, the kind of Beyonce stuff. I'm okay with it. I see a lot more people like it. Now, this is going to be a little controversial as we finish up. A lot of you are going to be like, no, Glorious should be down here. But for me, honestly, Party Next Door at the end and sort of the beginning where Drake is kind of showing Ice Spice how to do Ice Spice better than Ice Spice kind of saves the record for me. So I'm going to keep that at okay. Now, let's get to the whys. We'll use a minute for that. Meet Your Padre. Listen, it might work. Shout out to my Latino brothers and sisters, my Mexican brothers and sisters. But why is it here? You could just have gave, what's his name? I forgot his name. But the Mexican brother, you could have just gave him the record and let him use that for whatever. Celibacy feels like a force. It seems like you're trying to get the content of subject matter in there. But what's interesting about all of these songs, even like some like Greedy, is that they still sonically sound good. Some of them even still sonically fit the concept of what I think the album should be. But however, they feel like the 6 maybe extra songs that a 21 track project could have done without, right? Then we get a more concise and cohesive album.